Commissioner Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly. Commissioner Briggs or our law director, could you provide for us kind of a bullet point summary of what the changes would be under your proposal? I know that we've gotten a lengthy document, but if we could kind of narrow that down with bullet points to say, all right, here's what we have and here are the changes that I'm looking at. Maybe I've already got it and I just didn't see it, but that would be helpful to me if we could have that maybe by the agenda committee meeting, because I would really like to sit down with the fee offices and perhaps others. I really need to wrap my arms around this thing, but if there's a way that we could maybe get some kind of, here's where it is now, these are the changes that are, and the impact of those changes perhaps, that would be helpful to me.
We'll endeavor to work with Commissioner Briggs and do just that and work with the fee offices. Let me just say that in doing that, and the reason I place special emphasis on the general laws of the state of Tennessee, and the reason that I quoted from the excerpt in Jordan that said the statute trumps the charter. The problem is that there are state statutes that address these offices. And Commissioner Briggs mentioned the provision in the Knox County Charter that says the law director shall be the sole legal representative for these offices. There are also general laws of the state of Tennessee that specifically address the delinquent tax attorney, for example. I know that's been an issue of contention. And there are state statutes that specifically say how the delinquent tax attorney is chosen. So if there is a conflict between the charter and the state statute, in that regard, the state statute is going to trump the charter. That's why we get onto shaky ground if we start saying we're just going to ignore what state law says and just do what's in the charter. These rules of statutory construction that I talked about are there to try to harmonize provisions so that you don't run if there's a conflict between one or the other, you have to go by that one that predominates. And our Supreme Court has said that the state law would trump the charter if there were a conflict between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is helpful, and I guess what I'm asking for is kind of a resolution for dummies for me so that I can look at it. And I think also it's important for the public to fully understand the changes that we're talking about so that when they read it, they can read it and say, okay, here's what we're doing now, and this is exactly what the commission is proposing with their vote. But this is helpful. Thank you.
Well, it was about that. And this is not a legal argument or a legal statement that I'm going to make right now. That's what we've been arguing up to this point. But I think it gets back, do we want to run government like a business? Do we want to run it in an open fashion? Do we want to make it something so the citizens can understand? And it's the biggest hodgepodge of ways of running things. We have 5 different ways of doing payroll. We have 3 different ways of doing contracts. And I think even when we had the external auditor come in, and those of you that were on the committee, I was up there, I'm not a member of the committee, but I was there, when they were talking about the material deficiencies that they identified in the budgets and the way the accounting was going to be done, they said that if this were in the places that we know this is government and it's not the private sector, but they said if this was the audit committee of a private company, they would have grave and serious concerns over the risk of fraud being committed. And that statement was made by our external auditor, the new one. The previous auditor, Rutherford Moss, that we had in 2007, in June, they did a human resources assessment. They identified numerous problems that we have. And essentially the response was from many of those offices is we're going to continue to do business as usual. And we saw and we have seen some of the abuses that have occurred And with the investigation going on as we speak by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, I have a feeling they're going to uncover more. There was an article that's come up on the Knox News site already about things that have happened since this meeting has been going on today. The point being is we need to run government like a business that people can have confidence in, that it's being run correctly, that their tax dollars are not being squandered, that fraud is not being committed. And I would make an appeal to you that as you look at this, we can make a legal argument, but let's just try to do things right. Use a common sense approach to do things right.
On page 17,